QBS Radio on 7.5 FM back on the scene again. I love Thursdays. You know why I love Thursdays? Because you get a chance to have someone on the show and have a conversation. What's up, Jasmine? How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
How does it feel to be in the studio?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I would have never imagined to be here, so
Let me tell you a secret. Every time I get someone here, I pretend that I know some of the buttons, but most of the buttons are actually confuse me. So I just stick to what I know. And if I mess up, I call the technicians of like, I was just trying to show someone something. And then they're like, please don't touch this again.
Well, there are a lot of buttons. So.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of buttons in the studio. I'm glad to have you in the studio. Big shout outs to everyone who's listening on this beautiful Thursday. As you know, we always get a great guest and we talk about different topics, people here in town, the culture, music, fashion. And today we're talking about dogs in specific because apparently everyone has a dog here in town. Jasmine is a behavioral consultant and also a dog trainer. We had a great conversation and I felt like it was very important to have someone like Jasmine here on the show to talk about the journey, the challenges, and also the experience of someone who's studied, to be a consultant behavior. First of all, tell us a bit about yourself and your journey here in town,
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me and highlighting this importance of the subject.
Yeah.
And, I came to Qatar in 2011. And I was first in hospitality and in marketing. And
that's a big switch.
Yeah, it's a really big switch. But in the end of the day, I think it's not that much of a switch because I'm still working a lot with people. Not so much with dogs. That's what everybody thinks. Everybody thinks, oh, you're working with dogs all day. No, actually, it's the people.
Really?
That I work with. Yeah.
So the issue is the people, huh?
Yes, always. It's not so much the animal. It's more the person, know?
Yeah. So, and why did you switch into becoming like a dog consultant? And also, I want to ask you, what is a consultant behavior? But I'm very curious to know what makes someone just switch careers like that, especially like you,
Sure. Well, I found my dog Sophie in the streets, and she came with a whole set of issues. And I realized that there wasn't so much help here, professional help to resolve, for example, separation anxiety, reactivity towards other dogs, cats, and all that stuff. And well, then I thought, also I wanted to be with her at home more and not sit in the office all day.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I thought, what could I do? And that's when I realized, I could actually do dog training. And, it then turned, of course, my whole life turned around when I decided to do that.
So, but it takes a lot to be a dog trainer,
Absolutely.
And I can see your eyes. I wish we got some cameras or something. We do have cameras. You definitely got to check us out on Instagram, QBS Radio. Big shout out to the social media team, by the way. They're here with us in the studio. From the look you had in your face, it feels like it takes a lot to be a dog trainer.
It does.
It does.
So,
So how did you get into it? Like you said you studied it.
correct.
Like you went to uni, or is it online programs, or?
Yeah, well, the dog training industry itself is unregulated actually all over the world, except where I'm from in Germany. We have to pass a test at the ministry and, in front of the vet, official vet, basically, that's working at the ministry. And
How long is the course, though?
Yeah, it's a minimum of study of 12 months.
Okay.
And you can do that. You can do that long distance, learning. But I chose to also participate, there in internships and in-person trainings as well, because it's really, really, really important.
So you flew back?
Yeah.
Okay. And
I flew back and forth.
Back and forth, yeah.
While working, full time. So
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was a year, almost a year and a half of,
education and stuff like that.
Education and learning and late night shifts.
Wasn't it kind of interesting when you go through an education like that and you realize how much ignorant you were about a lot of the things that you thought you knew but you actually didn't know, and there's so many questions. Sometimes you see a dog, you're like, yeah, it's easy, you can just have a dog, you know what I mean? Like you feed it 3 times, you take it for a walk, and that's it. You're a happy person, you know what I mean?
Wish it was that easy.
Yeah, exactly. So and then you went through the process of owning the knowledge. What is a consultant behavior? What is that also?
Yes. So, dog training is all about, learning techniques and the methods you apply and how does a dog learn. We also learn a lot, about the physiology, anatomy of the dog. And there's so much at play, when you try to actually teach something to an animal,
Yeah.
or to even human. Yeah, I mean that's
True.
why teachers study as well.
Yeah.
But that is more the training aspect. So, teaching a dog certain manners. But then there are certain problems that arise sometimes where behavior is at play. Yeah, and that's where a consultant that is specialized in behavior needs to be asked, for help. And
Okay.
that's basically the next step from a dog trainer to become a behavior consultant. So it's a level up from the dog trainer, I would say,
Really?
sort of. Yeah.
Do you face like more difficult challenges as a consultant behavior than the average dog trainer, in a way?
Well, I would say it's different challenges that you face, right? As a dog trainer, sometimes you face challenges that the dog isn't so motivated by, food, or is not, is too aroused or too highly excited for something. So you can't really work with that dog in that moment. But when it comes to behavior consulting, it's more aggression cases. It's more, where there's risks and liabilities involved. And so it is a little bit, I mean, sometimes a bit tough to deal with.
How do you handle that? Like, I personally wouldn't want to be in a room with an aggressive dog, and I have to like, I mean, I don't care how much you're paying me. I'm not going to be in a room with an aggressive dog. That takes a lot of guts, especially if it's a big dog or something like that.
Well, you see, we try to set up the dog for success.
Okay.
Right. So I would not want to risk myself getting bitten. Right. And I do not want.
Did that ever happen?
Well, it did with one Pomeranian.
Pomeranian.
But that's it. That's all about it.
Okay.
Thanks God, touch wood. I'm touching the wood right now. But when you really know canine body language and you really know the case, and I wouldn't take on an aggression case without studying the history of that dog, and that's done prior to me arriving to that house, and we set up the dog, for my visit.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm not even coming over the first time we're meeting. Maybe I'm just meeting the
owners.
The guardians, we like to call them, by themselves, or we set up an online consultation prior to me coming over.
Yeah. And is there a lot of cases like this here in town, like aggressive dogs?
Yes,
or,
we do.
Like,
we do have.
Yeah. Because I do see a lot of posts on Instagram, especially street dogs.
Yes, absolutely.
At the beginning, the numbers were actually more, but I think now it's way better than before, especially, seeing that there's some good collaboration, whether from people or also the municipality. But in terms of that, are they usually common amongst house dogs or like street dogs, or?
I would say across all of them. You have that misconception that we talked about earlier before we went on air, with the golden retrievers, for example.
Yeah.
So everybody thinks they're family dogs and they're just easy to train and all that stuff. But
They're crazy dogs.
They're working dogs after all.
Yeah.
And they're gun dogs, and there are issues coming up, mostly amongst family dogs, right? But then of course we have a lot of dogs that had not the best upbringing, not the best socialization, unfortunately, and that's what I deal with mostly.
Before we take a break and spin a track, we'll be back, of course. I had a golden retriever once. I couldn't handle it. I'm being honest with you. I would go back home and everything would be a mess. Things would be on the floor, the couch.
They need a lot of stimulation.
Oh yeah. I've never knew how patient I am as a person.
Oh
yeah.
They teach you. See?
Oh yeah, that dog was definitely a test. And for the first time when I would see the dog asleep, I would feel like a burden. I'd be like,
relieved.
I'd be like, now I can relax, now I can enjoy and just live life for the next 1 hour. You know what I mean? So you're right. There's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of things that are somehow taught to us wrong when it comes to owning a pet. I mean, the responsibility. There's a lot of people that get pets here in town and then they just give them away. I mean, maybe I would understand that there's some challenges you face. But at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of responsibility that is not being taken seriously in a way.
That's very true. It's
because you're
like
dealing,
having a child.
Yeah, it's because you're dealing with a soul by the end of the day, We'll get into that more, especially your journey. But in the meantime, we're just going to take a little quick pause. Say My Name by David Guetta and Pepper X and J Balvin. I don't know if you like this kind of music.
Yeah, absolutely.
You sure?
Love it.
You sure? You're not being nice?
No.
All right.
I'm being brutally honest.
Okay. Back on the scene again, QBS 97.5 FM, broadcasting to you live from the guitar 6:19 here in the studio. We're still enjoying the conversation with Jasmine. You know, I was curious when it comes to becoming, or when it comes to being a dog owner and also a trainer here. What are some of the challenges that you mostly face?
Well, I would say the heat is one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's yeah, most of the year it's hot, right?
Yeah.
And what normally we would consider, not going out of the house, let's say in Europe or whatever, at temperatures of 34 or 35, but we basically don't go below that ever, during the summer. So the heat is one, and another really big challenge is access. We don't really have that many places where we can take dogs to, and we don't really have that many options, to socialize puppies and to actually take them out. So that's I think the major two challenges.
Yeah. So especially socialization.
Yes.
So what do people do? What do they take the dogs to socialize and also maybe get to know each other as a community or just regular dog lovers? You know what I mean? In town.
Well, for myself, I mean, my paw keepers, right? We have a little community ourselves. So we meet up every week and we go for little walks and we go to the beach and do that stuff. I have little group classes as well and so on. Of course, we now have a dog park as well.
We do?
Yeah. Oh, you don't know?
No, I don't know.
Oh, wow. I mean, it's fairly new. It's been, I think, a year now, but it closed over the summer. So it's reopening on the 15th of September.
Okay, where is it?
It's in Albida Park.
Okay.
Barkers and Mittens opened that last year, and it's free of charge. You just need to register, sign up, and you can, take your dog there. So that's one of the spots as well where you can,
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So it's allowed. Is it on leash or off leash?
It's off leash. It's all off leash, and it's pretty cool.
That's very interesting. So what are the challenges that you face as a dog trainer when it comes to working with people and dogs? Some of the most common mistakes that are very shared amongst paw owners, like you say.
Yeah. Well, I would say one of the biggest challenges, is that misconception that you have to be the boss, of your dog.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I get that a lot.
Alpha male.
The alpha male. Yeah. And the dog's doing that on purpose, and and I mean, this is one of the, to change that mindset, I would say, is a very big challenge, which I love because I love to, share the knowledge that I gained throughout the years. And it's been going really great. I see a big change in how people, treat their dogs. And I see a lot of dogs walked in harnesses as opposed to collars or slip leashes.
Oh yes, collars are very horrible.
Yeah. You can do a lot of damage to the throat and to, the neck and everything. So, that's one of the major challenges, to change that.
So what do you recommend when it comes to working with someone who thinks you have to be the boss, you have to be the alpha male? Like, how do you start off in changing the mentality and also the behavior of the owner?
I always try, to link it a little bit to children. Yeah,
Okay.
Because a dog's emotional intelligence, the EQ of a dog, is equivalent to a toddler of 18 months old.
Yeah.
And let's say your toddler screams and cries. Yeah, you wouldn't be shouting at normally, right?
Yeah,
But I mean, you wouldn't be shouting at your kid and screaming at your kid. And so the same thing goes for a dog, basically.
Okay.
A dog is not doing that on purpose. A dog is reacting to something or behaving a certain way because it worked for the dog in the past. And, you need to teach the dog alternatives, right? And this has nothing to do with being your dog's boss or, asserting dominance or something like that.
That's kind of very common. Also, when it comes to, I've noticed something that, especially the yelling. When the dog makes a mistake, you see it sometimes in public. They start shouting and pulling the harness, and in my mind, I'm like, is this okay, or is this right, or is this wrong? Is this a way to actually, deal with the pet in a way that it could actually obey and listen, and then you could be, getting what you want, and then and everybody just lives happily ever after. Like, what is your conception of that?
Well, first of all, we're dealing with an animal that doesn't speak our language, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
They speak more of our language than we do theirs.
Really?
Yeah, because they try to figure out things, they try to pick up on our social cues, they try to pick up on our words. But do we make that effort?
Yeah.
Very little, actually. So when it comes to, let's put it in quotes, misbehaving, yeah, you always need to think, dogs really don't have that sense of right and wrong.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, they feel either threatened, let's say, if they bark or lunge at something. They feel probably threatened. They feel, surprised by something. They can't deal with it. And now you're the only thing in a dog's life, basically. Yeah, you decide when they go out. You decide what they eat. You decide everything. And now you're, in that moment when they don't really know right or wrong, right? And you shout at them. You're mad, and they know, yeah, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And they get afraid of you. So they learn to not trust you anymore because they don't know when are you the bad cop and when are you the good cop, right? And this is where, in the actual training, world right now, yeah, we know so much more than 10 years ago. We have
really
so many researchers and studies and everything, so much more than 10 years ago.
What's a big common myth that you feel like, that has been proven wrong in the past years? There's a lot of conversation when it comes to eating kibble. Yeah. There's a lot of conversation about raw diet. There's a lot of conversation about what do you call, some dogs are not meant for first breed owners. Dog owners. There's a certain breed. Big dogs can't live in an apartment, for example. There's so many conversations.
Yeah.
Everybody, kind of like half the country lives in an apartment here.
Yeah.
So sometimes you wonder, like, is that even possible for you to have a dog here? What's the most common myth that has been somehow debunked recently that you've been happy that it's been debunked in a way?
Oh, well, that's a very good, interesting point. You mentioned so many, by the way.
I know,
right
because
there's a lot. I would even, there's so many that, are actually now, for example, the apartment thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's take that one because I remember you asked me before
I
as
did,
well.
Yeah.
So I believe, and I answered the same way to you when you asked me. I do not believe in this apartment, like a big dog should not be in an apartment. I don't believe in it. It really matters on your availability and your time and your knowledge and your effort, to stimulate that dog appropriately. Doesn't matter if you have a German Shepherd in a studio. Yeah, doesn't matter. If your German Shepherd, let's say, is exercised well physically, mentally, stimulated, and has a job to do, and is overall happy, right? Why not? Yeah, it doesn't need a big garden or something to run around. It's totally fine. So I see also a lot of dogs now in Le Pearl, of course, like you said, everybody mostly lives in an apartment, and those dogs are fine. Yeah, it's maybe not the best, right? Everybody would imagine
it's not an ideal situation.
No, but it's fine.
But it's possible.
It's all right. It's possible.
No, you know what? Because I've seen it. I drive around town, and sometimes I pass by the Pearl, and I see really huge dogs coming out of apartments.
Exactly.
I seen one day a really huge Malamute, and I'm like, how is this even possible? That Malamute was in the size of a horse, you know what I mean? And I was like, how is it even an apartment? Like, how is that even possible? Like, and the owner looked pretty comfortable. They were having a nice walk. They were enjoying, the walk together.
Yes.
So in my mind, I'm like, is this even possible? Because when you go on YouTube and you watch, documentaries or you read articles about, because I'm kind of I'm the kind of person that I'm very curious about different topics.
Sure.
And sometimes I see something and I do a little research about it. And a lot of the online articles, they focus on the type of the breed and they tell you, no, you can't have this dog in an apartment. It's not an ideal situation, whether you're going to face a lot of shedding or you're going to face a lot of, especially the space is just not right for that kind of dog, Yeah. So in my mind, I'm like, is it always based on personal experience, or is it somehow based on a collective opinion by?
Yeah.
It confuses me.
It is. And again, the internet has a lot of information, right? And not everything's right. Yeah. But I would say breed does matter. Yeah, the breed matters, of course, because we have bred these dogs, specific dogs, for centuries, to perform specific tasks. And now these tasks have been sometimes, taken over by, let's say, a surveillance camera. Yeah, you don't need a guard dog because you have a camera. But still, we have these dogs, and we still have these traits that we bred them for. But now they're pet dogs, and they don't have this job. So if you decide to get, let's say, a dog that is classified as a working dog, and let's pick the Golden Retriever again. They're gun dogs, they're hunting dogs.
Yeah.
So if you decide to get one and you research and you read about it, you need to be aware that they're very active mostly, yeah, and you need to make sure that you meet these needs.
Isn't it kind of funny when you mentioned the golden retriever,
Yeah.
because they're the most common dog breed owned by people.
They
They're the
are.
most popular owned by
Yes.
than German shepherds and stuff like
Yes.
that. But it's crazy that people actually, some of them, they don't research that. They're like, oh, it's cute, it's a family dog. Like that's what it's
Because that's
portrayed
what's
as it is.
on the internet mostly, right?
Yeah.
But then if you dig deeper, you will find out that these dogs are actually hunting dogs.
Yeah.
So
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. I want to talk about some of the pros and cons of owning a dog here in town. What are some of the pros and some of the cons for you beside the heat when it comes to that? Like a lot of people, they complain, for example, when it comes to vet, fees or the expenses. Also the challenges of, like you said, spaces that are very welcomed in animals. But from your experience, what are the most complaints that you hear from dog owners and yourself also when it comes to that?
I think one of the complaints, especially when people start training with me, is access to equipment as well. Yeah, because
Yes.
we don't have a huge selection of harnesses or a huge selection of long leashes. I love to work with long leashes, not retractable leashes.
Okay.
Yeah, they are very common here, unfortunately, but just fixed long training leashes, and it's nearly impossible to find that.
Yeah.
Those are worth gold. Yeah, if you have one, oh my God, you need to keep that. So these little things that make it really hard, because then you have to order it online, and then it arrives whatever in 2 weeks, and you pay a lot of shipment, and
Yeah.
so that's one challenge, I would say.
And somehow the basic stuff are very overpriced.
Yeah, it's also importing things is very costly, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, accessing these is not. You have only a few shops that sell certain things, and it's all the same.
Yeah.
Everybody has the same.
Everybody has the same product.
Yeah.
True. I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. You go there, you find the same leashes, you
Yeah.
find the same things. I don't know if they all shop from the same place, but
Probably one distributor, and
yeah.
that's it.
And I'm just like,
Yeah.
why does everyone have the
We need
same
more.
options? And what are some of the pros? Some of the good side of it.
Well, the good side, of course, is the unconditional love that a dog gives you, right? I mean, if you get a dog into your life, of course you have to be ready for it. Yeah, it's a huge commitment for the next, 10, 15, 20 years. But even, the guardians that work with me that have very complicated dogs, yeah, that are, that they can't take the dog, let's say, just out there in the park and walk with other dogs, and they have to manage their dog really carefully, but still they wouldn't change the dog for anything in the world.
Really? And some of these dogs are they, for example, adopted or bought, or
We have all
different variety, yeah.
different.
Would you recommend that for someone, for example, as a first dog owner, to adopt a dog? Because some dogs would come with anxieties, with issues and stuff like that. And like, how would you feel when it comes to that, adopting a dog? Especially dogs that was living in the street, and then you have to,
Yeah. Well, see, you can't judge a book by its cover, right?
Yeah.
So that's again, when I said breed matters, right? It does matter, but also the individual dog is again an individual.
Because you see a lot of adoption posters.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot going on. I mean, we need more homes and more foster homes, and there's just too many dogs for the country.
Yeah.
But I would always suggest, if it's a first-time owner, to go back to your question, I would always suggest to get an adult dog. Yeah, so
not a puppy,
exactly, not a puppy, and foster first, see for 3-4 weeks how it goes, and if anything arises, no strings attached, you can still, change and bring the dog back again, even though that's also heartbreaking oftentimes. But sometimes it's for the best, and the dog maybe needs another family, that has, is better suited for that dog.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
you gotta be honest with yourself.
Yeah,
I mean,
of
if
course.
you can do it or you can't do it,
pick your battles,
Yeah, I agree on that. We'll continue the conversation. We'll take a little quick break. We got a great track by the Smashing Pumpkins, in 1979, and then Black Magic Woman by Santana. And then we'll be back afterwards, continuing the conversation until 7 o'clock. You can definitely be a part of the show on 92627, and also our WhatsApp number. QBS WhatsApp number, which is 55975 Let me say that again, 55975 Stick around. Man, you gotta love Santana. Black Magic Woman at 97.5 FM, broadcasting to you live from Doha, Qatar. It's just such a, I don't know. I mean, did you ever listen to Santana?
Yes,
Yeah?
very chilled.
I had a friend once who's like, I've never listened to Santana. It just took me off guard. And I was like, what are you
Oh my
doing?
God.
Do you live on
Wow.
Earth with us? Like, what are you doing?
Which planet are you on?
Let me see your, what do you call it? Your playlist.
Exactly.
Let me add some tunes to you. Now, you got to download this one. I Want to Be Yours by Archaic Monkeys coming up after our conversation. So, we had a question here on WhatsApp, and someone was asking, how would you know the medical record of a street dog? I think this one is by Kelvin. Yeah.
All right. Well, we have to differentiate. You know, is it a dog that was born on the street, lived on the street, and has always been on the street? Or is it maybe a dog that has so far lived in a house, or had lived in a house, and then was unfortunately dumped or ran away or whatever? The first thing I would always do is check for microchip.
Okay.
Yeah, if the dog has a microchip, maybe, you know, by phoning all the vets in the country, maybe you can find if the dog was already seen by a vet
Wouldn't
in
they
the past.
wouldn't they be able to know you just took it to a vet if he has a microchip or not?
Yeah, you need to scan that at the
Yeah.
vet, basically,
Yeah.
unless you have a microchip reader. Yeah.
What are the odds?
Yeah.
What are the odds?
What are the odds?
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, well, the microchip number can tell you, you know, if the dog is maybe registered or not. There's a microchip database here in Qatar, and then you can, you know, see. That would be one way, you know, to find out if there was something in the past, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously the other way is assessing the dog, blood test, checking everything from toenail to ear tip
Okay.
and nose to tail,
Yeah.
all over.
You know, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, most of these street dogs, they end up being in really bad shape.
Yeah.
You know, whether injuries, whether
Life's
broken
hard out
bones.
there.
Life is really
Yeah,
hard, you know,
yeah.
and so when I see some pictures, I just really feel bad. But you know, hopefully, like there's some really good work happening here by
There
Sigalti
is.
and also the community.
Yes.
So big shout outs to whoever is doing it. Also, if you're listening to us, a little dedication. I mean, big shout outs to you. I see some individual work by people that are actually trying to take care of animals on the street, and not just dogs, even cats.
Oh yeah, there are many cats. As
You
well,
know,
yeah.
you know what's interesting? This is kind of funny. I usually wake up in the morning and I go for a run. There's an old woman that I see every day at around 5 a.m. in the morning, and she literally just feeds all the street cats.
Wow.
Every day I wake up and I see her. We've never had a conversation. I just see her from a distance, and she buys food with her own money, and she
Yeah.
just walks around the whole neighborhoods, and she puts little water and like plates of food for all these. So if you're listening to this, the odds, just big shout outs to you. It's very inspirational
It
to see
is.
someone, you know,
is.
very consistent, especially in the heat, the humidity, and then you just wake up at 5 and you do it. You know, you got to have a big heart.
Absolutely, it's
We got another question here from Jasmine. She's asking, do you see a change in how dog training is perceived in town?
there is.
Yeah.
I can see, and I can see as well. A lot of my clients, you know, a dog has small.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's very
Right.
small.
I agree on that. It's very tiny.
So, you know, and you know, the areas where dogs are allowed it's kind of concentrated. You know, there's the Pearl, there's this. So when I drive around, you know, like I said earlier, I see a lot more dogs being walked in harnesses, long leashes,
Yeah.
and the dog parents have a treat pouch, you know, with them
Yeah.
or toys. So this all are signs for, you know, positive training.
Do you think it's a must for you to get a dog trainer? Like, honestly, like, because living here in town, I rarely met people that actually take their dogs to dog training. You know, most of my friends are dog owners. I've never heard them when they said, "Oh, I got a dog trainer." Out of 5, I had one friend who did.
Yeah,
Do you think it's somehow is it important?
I would say it is.
Yeah.
It is. And see, even myself, I mean, I'm a professional. I've been, you know, I'm working this. This is my life and my
Yeah.
bread and butter, right?
Yeah.
But I do take classes too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I travel and you know, I attend workshops all over the world, in the US and Germany, everywhere. I take classes as well with my dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think if you are an experienced owner, then it's always nice and good to have maybe just 1 or 2 refresher sessions when you have a new dog coming in, just to have another pair of eyes, you know, looking at the dog and giving you a few tips. And yeah, should be standard protocol. I think.
Okay. There's something that you wanted to talk about, that a common issue that you face here in town when it comes to people asking for consent
Correct.
before petting your dog or approaching your dog, especially children.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
So I work a lot, with aggression cases and reactivity cases. So reactivity means when a dog is lunging, barking, not intentionally hurting somebody, but is, having big feelings about something. And my guardians, they work really hard, trying to, change how their dog feels about certain things in the human world. And sometimes, call it ignorance, call it not knowing what to do, right? Some people just push it a little bit too far. They just follow you and or they pass by and bark at you. I mean, literally, barking. Yeah, sometimes kids bark as well. They don't know any better, I know, but it's our responsibility as a community to teach everybody that not every dog is, friendly, and wants to be pet, and sometimes people just want to be left alone with their dog and trying to work on things, and it can set back a dog immensely when the space that the dog requires is ignored. So just asking, from afar, is your dog? Can we come over? Can we say hi? I would, allow if the time is right, but sometimes I just say sorry. We're just in training, and the no should also be accepted.
Speaking of this conversation, because I did go out with my friends who have dogs a couple of times, especially to, what is it called, Doha Sports Club or something?
Yes, yeah.
And then you see a lot of people with dogs and stuff like that, and the idea of, or the conversation of consent came into that moment. And in my head, I was like, are people being extra when they ask for dog consent, or is it actually something that you really should do? Especially, sometimes they would ask you while they're already touching the dog.
That's what I meant, exactly. Just ask before.
So I remember I was witnessing that, and the kids were literally touching the dog. And they were like, "Can we touch the dog?" And I'm like, "You're already doing it, bro. You're already doing it, bro. You're doing the damage already." But I agree, it's something is very important, and I've learned that later on. Earlier in my years, I never thought that was actually important. You see a dog, somehow it's friendly. You see the owner, you got to react to it. And also the idea of walking your dog with a leash. A lot of the times you see it they're off leash. And I'm wondering, I'm like, is that okay? And he's like, no, it's a trained dog. I believe in it. I trust it. But in my head, I'm like, can't anything go wrong at that moment?
Oh, it can.
Yeah,
it's an animal after all. We will never have 100% control.
Yeah.
Right.
There's something that's very interesting for me, and I personally feel like it's one of the most common shared conversations when it comes to owning a dog or a pet in general. Diet.
Oh, yeah.
I know this conversation.
Hot topic.
Oh yeah, I know this conversation can go for hours and hours.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you ask the vet and you were like, "Can I just feed him dry food?" They were like, "Yeah, just feed him dry food." But from a logical perspective, I feel like you as a living being, would you really want to eat this dry stuff 24/7? Just doesn't make sense.
Probably not.
You know what I mean? But of course, they would always come and start saying medical stuff in terms, but it just doesn't make sense, And then you see other people on YouTube, they're talking about raw feeding. They're talking about you can feed them where you're eating as long as you cook it before in advance. But honestly, as an honest review, what would you say about this topic?
Okay, let me start off by saying that I'm not a vet nutritionist. Yeah, so I'm. So I mean, I can only
what worked
share,
with you.
Exactly. I can only share what I know. What like you said, what worked for us.
Yeah, because 100 years ago, dry food didn't exist.
Exactly. And the dogs still lived.
and they lived. Like what happens to these dogs back in the 1800s?
I know.
And is it like a big marketing kind of thing that somehow, please feed them dry food. This is the best thing. Yeah. So I'm just curious. And a lot of people, we live in an age where people can find information. You can't lie to people anymore.
The right spot.
Yeah, exactly. You just can't lie to people anymore. You got to be honest about these things.
So let me start off this way. I would suggest everybody who's listening right now to follow Rodney Habib. He's Canadian. He is a dog parent. He's not a vet. He's a dog parent, and his dog got cancer, diagnosed with cancer, and he didn't want to accept that. Yeah, and he wanted to find out what actually happened. I mean, why would his dog get cancer? So he wrote the book together with a very well-known and well-respected vet. Her name is Dr. Karen Becker. The book name is The Forever Dog, and I would highly recommend everybody who has a dog or a cat even, to read that book, because it talks really literally about what you just said. Yeah, there's processed food, and we generally know that processed isn't the best food for us. Yeah, so we have to, maybe think that we should, consider something else for our dogs as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you naturally feed your dog?
I feed my dogs home cooked, so they eat a home cooked diet, and and they are thriving.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah.
So you don't believe in kibble or stuff like that?
For every dog, there's a certain approach, right? Some dogs can't really tolerate a lot of food. Some dogs have allergies. Some dogs, are really far gone in their medical history. They're really not accepting. But I would say, again, you are what you eat, and I have this rule. I would feed my dogs only what I would eat.
Okay.
So, and that's my rule, and that has worked for us really well.
Yeah, because I remember when I traveled around, especially when I go to sometimes countrysides around the world or stuff like that, I see villagers or people just feeding their dogs whatever they're eating.
Yeah,
like you would never see a bag of dry food there.
Table scraps and
and these dogs, they look very healthy, they look happy, their teeth are fine. So in my head, I'm like, what is it with people that lives in cities or in somehow more developed societies? They focus a lot on these commercialized diets. Like, is it actually better? Is it healthier? I know there's not a one answer to everything.
That's the thing.
That's the thing.
It's you have to everybody's an individual, like I said earlier as well, right?
Yeah.
And you always have to see what works for your individual dog.
Yeah.
But as a general rule, that's what we follow. We follow home cooked diet, and it's working great for us.
Okay. What's the best solution when it comes to owning a dog here in the summer? How do you avoid that heat? How do you work through it?
Very hard sometimes, because we only have a little window, time window to go out and then exercise, which is before sunset usually, up to maybe 7 in the morning, and after that it's just insanely hot.
Yeah.
So we focus a lot on mental stimulation during the summer.
Yeah.
So this summer, for example, my dog Charlie, he learned to read.
What?
Yeah. He's reading. I mean, he knows a few words now. We are up to 4 words. Okay. So they're on a paper, written down nice and big, and he can recognize the shape of the letters. I mean, the shape of, or the way the word looks, basically.
Interesting. Yeah. You actually train him to do that?
Yeah. Sit down. I mean, he can read, sit down, and right turn and speak.
Yeah. You should see my house. When the dog says, everybody applauds. That's how developed they get there.
Yeah.
You're setting the bar really high right now.
Is that right? We need to be inspired, right?
Yeah, we get a phone call when the dog says,
"Oh,
look, the dog is."
The dog's here.
Lastly, before we wrap up, what's next for you, and also what's next when it comes to dog training here in town? Your perspective, and also when or where can people follow up with you just to see and to learn more from your knowledge and experience also?
Yeah, well, next for me is pursuing my master's degree in clinical animal behavior.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my next step. So getting that master's in and getting more knowledge. Now, I'm very active on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, the pawkeeper_dog training.
Okay.
And that's where I share most of my news and updates. And locally, I am hoping to establish what we have already in the region a little bit in UAE. We have Reading Dogs UAE.
Okay.
And I'm trying to bring the same concept here, which is...
What is that?
Dogs assisting with therapy, with counseling.
Okay, yes.
With kids with learning disabilities. So it's animal-assisted therapy and intervention.
Yeah.
So that's
because that plays a big role, by the way.
Huge role.
It does.
Yeah,
especially
it's very underestimated. It's wow.
It totally slipped my mind, especially autism and especially these kind of conditions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Best of luck in that, and of course,
Thank you so much.
I believe that you'll do a great job in it.
Trying.
Oh yeah, for sure. And until we meet again, wishing you a great one.
Thank
We
you
had a
for
great
having me.
conversation. Yeah, for sure.
It was really a pleasure.
We really did enjoy the conversation. You guys heard her. You can definitely follow up. She shared her Instagram. You can definitely check out our Instagram page also for tags, just in case you missed out on the name and you forgot it. In the meantime, coming up here is going to be the Chainsmokers and Shipwreck, The Fall. I love the name. It's very dramatic.
Yeah.
You know, a little dedication
Ooh.
for you. Happy
Thank
Thursday.
you.
Top of the hour
Happy
is going to
Thursday.
be. Yeah,
Thank you.
there you go. 7 o'clock is going to be the news bulletin. So stick around until then.